war in Ukraine is about to complete 1 year. The fatigue is setting in. Even the West is realizing its limits. The delivery of lethal tanks has not even begun, but Kiev already has a new demand. It wants fighter jets, a demand that has swiftly been shot down by the West. Ukraine followed up with a new demand. It wants sanctions against India and China for buying Russian oil. The demand comes from a senior lawmaker of Ukraine. His name is Alexander Merezhko. He heads the Foreign Affairs Committee in Ukraine's parliament. He says he has lived in New Delhi and he finds India's oil purchases from Russia to be painful. Listen to what he says about India's policy, and I'm quoting, "They should be consistent. This is a global conflict between democracy, the free world, and authoritarian regimes. There shouldn't be any compromise because of material economic interest." Merezhko made this comment in Washington, D.C. He wants the U.S. to slap secondary sanctions on India and China. First, let's tell you why he's there in the first place. Merezhko is on a mission to rally American lawmakers to keep their support for Ukraine going. Why was this necessary? Because public support for Ukraine has been slipping. America's assistance for Ukraine is under the lens. The blank check to Ukraine is being questioned, especially by the leaders of the Republican Party. Recent events have made the scrutiny necessary. A series of corruption scandals came to light. President Zelensky ordered a purge. 15 officials either resigned or were dismissed. So the Americans want to know where their money, their aid money, is going. Recently, some American officials were in Ukraine. A top official delivered a message to Kiev. Listen to what he said, and I'm quoting, "The trip afforded us the opportunity to directly communicate American taxpayer expectations of transparency and accountability to the Ukrainian government." Will Merezhko defend these corruption charges? Isn't this a case of material interest? And he spoke about the conflict between democracy and authoritarian regimes. So we ask, where does he stand on the issue of terror states, of states sponsoring terrorism? Because his government, the Ukrainian government, seems to have no qualms about doing business with them. In fact, let me tell you a story. In August last year, Rawalpindi was buzzing. A British plane had landed at the Noor Khan base. It was a military plane of the Royal Air Force of the United Kingdom, the RAF, the Royal Air Force. And this wasn't the first time this plane was in Pakistan. The RAF, British Air Force, had been repeatedly sending planes to Rawalpindi on almost a daily basis. This is what reports said. So why did the United Kingdom send a military plane to Pakistan? They were not holding any drills after all. What then explains the frequent visits? The plane was on a mission. It was said to be picking up these.
Для ванни. І що, шипить хорошо? Коротше, дурня, тільки гроші тратиш. Боже мій, тобі удобно з такими котами, нігтями? Ви подивіться, що в неї за нігті. Наляпала собі там.
What are these, you may ask? Well, what you saw are believed to be Pakistani howitzer projectiles. They're now in the hands of the Ukrainian military, transported by the UK. Connect the dots and you'll know what the British military plane was doing in Pakistan, picking up Pakistani military supplies to be given to Ukraine. The UK government was sourcing shells from Pakistan. By early August, there were multiple reports. A UK Royal Air Force plane was caught making frequent trips to Pakistan. It was a C-17 Globemaster aircraft bearing serial number ZZ143. How many trips did this plane make? At least 12, according to one report. And with every trip, Pakistan entered deeper into the battleground in Ukraine. Pakistan became a supplier of munitions. And none of this is new. Some of you may be aware that this is an old relationship, nearly 3 decades old. Ever since Ukraine became a separate country after the breakup of the Soviet Union, it has had a military relationship with Pakistan. And at the heart of this relationship were weapons. Ukraine was the supplier. I have some figures to show how deep these ties ran. Until 2020, Ukraine supplied arms worth nearly $1.6 billion to Pakistan. In the 1990s, Ukraine sold over 300 tanks to Pakistan. The deal was worth $600 million, and it helped both the parties. You see, Pakistan needed weapons to carry out its state-sponsored terrorist activities, and Ukraine needed a buyer to rescue it from financial struggles. The deal with Pakistan saved a tank factory in Ukraine from bankruptcy. For Kiev, Islamabad has been one of its biggest customers. Just look at how a Ukrainian state-run defense giant refers to Pakistan. They call it a strategic client, a country with quote-unquote high levels of trust and mutual understanding. That is how Ukrainian companies describe Pakistan. Clearly, the relationship ran deep. Pakistan depended on Ukraine for its weapon supplies. So when Ukraine was running out of ammo, Rawalpindi was happy to step up and help. And so I come back to the question, borrowing the words of this Ukrainian lawmaker who wants India to be sanctioned. Is this not a case of material interest? Will Ukraine call out Pakistan for its terror factories? Will it condemn the Pakistani military support to terrorist groups, those who have waged deadly attacks on India? Will it call out Pakistani generals for holding Pakistan's democracy hostage? Well, we are not holding our breath for a response.